Hi, this is Lynn Drake with Compass Commercial, and today my guest is Jacob Ensley. And we are going to be talking about pavement and the importance of that when you're buying a building or even if you're leasing a building long term. How you doing, Jacob?
I'm good. How are you, Lynn?
Good, thanks. Jacob has a Bachelor's of Science Civil Engineering degree from Lawrence Tech University, and he's a registered professional engineer since 2012, and you also have a certification called PASSER. Can you talk to us about what that means?
Yeah, so PASER rating is essentially the local rating system that the local municipalities use to rate their roads based on visible distresses and current conditions of the pavement.
Okay, great. You also you specialize in site engineering. Can you just tell me a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So on the site engineering side of things, we work with a lot of architects, property developers for, basically for ground up developments.
Mhm.
And again, work with architects on building, site engineering, things like that. So what we do on that end is we work everything on the exterior of the building. We'll work on the pavements, we'll work on site utilities, the storm sewer, um, underground sanitary sewer, water main, design the grades of the site, drainage, all of that. So that's essentially what we do on the site engineering side of things.
Okay, so I'm just curious. We're going to talk in a second about your pavement, how you help if someone's buying a building with the pavement assessments. But if somebody wanted to help you from a site situation, would an architect be hiring you to do that? Or do people come to you directly for that?
A lot of the business comes through architects who have a certain building that they're contracted to design,
Mhm.
and then they'll come to us to kind of bring the design side of things into the project for the site. There are other situations where there are developers, whether it's residential, commercial, where they will bring us on direct to help with those types of designs.
Mhm.
So there's a mixture of kind of both situations with site engineering.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's get to pavement. So if I'm going to buy a building, why don't you talk about how important it is to have that pavement assessed and what that means?
So it's incredibly important. I mean, the vast, just the pure amount of pavement that's on site, it's going to be a massive cost to maintain and to eventually repair and replace. And it's something that really doesn't get a lot of attention. It kind of gets put on the back burner. It's not too flashy. It's not part of the building, but it's a big item that you need to be mindful of. So the goal of any pavement condition assessment is to really evaluate where are you at that point in the pavement's life cycle, and to help plan on what repairs should essentially be implemented for those individual pavement segments on site, as well as kind of coming up with a planned budget for those types of repairs. And then that type of information will help aid in coming up with the best plan of action to move forward with whether or not you have to replace your entire parking lot, or if there are other options such as maintenance or rehab techniques. And then with that information, you can take that kind of overall cost backlog and figure out what the most cost-effective approach is to move forward with that once you have that information in hand. I think the biggest problem that property owners and managers seem to have is just not really having a good handle on what the backlog is and what needs to happen for each individual pavement segment, and not even just in an individual parking lot, but there are segments within that lot. If there were phases in building that lot where there are, expansions or additions to that lot, there could be varying degrees of condition on site, and different things that you can do to implement a cost-effective plan. So without knowing your current needs, it's really difficult to plan. So bringing in an engineer on to kind of review the current conditions, come up with the recommended repairs, and those budget costs will go a long way in planning financially for the future repairs.
So I have a question. When you guys are doing this, are you guys drilling down in the cement? How are you determining?
Yeah, that is one big part of evaluating any given pavement segment. So we do look at the surface of the pavement to kind of rate the current condition based on surface distresses and what we can see above ground. But another important component, as you mentioned, is drilling into that pavement, seeing how thick the existing pavement is, seeing what kind of aggregate base is underneath it, and the native subgrade soils, whether it's clay or sand. That makes a big difference in what we would essentially recommend for that type of segment. So that is part of it as well, analyzing the underground soils.
Okay, great. Thanks. I was curious.
Sure.
Are there various types of maintenance techniques or pavement repairs that can be implemented?
Yeah, so depending on the current condition, there's a wide variety of different types of techniques that we could implement. Whether it be a preventative maintenance type of technique or a rehabilitative type of repair, or reconstruction. The old mindset with pavement was, well, you wait until the pavement is just in terrible shape, and then you're left to rebuild it, basically reconstruct from the base up. Well, that's not necessarily the best way to look at things and to go about things. There are different things that you can do throughout the pavement's lifespan that will help extend or maintain the planned life of the pavement at a much lower cost than reconstructing. For example, if you've got a pavement that's in generally good condition, but there are some cracks popping up, the best thing you can do is to seal those cracks and fill those with a sealant. Because the main goal is to prevent water intrusion from getting into that subsurface. Once water gets in there, it just wreaks havoc, especially in the northern climates where you got freeze thaw concerns.
Yeah.
There are other issues like, or not necessarily issues, but other techniques like a partial depth mill and overlay for an asphalt pavement, where you don't necessarily reconstruct it, the full section of pavement, but if you got a pavement that's in fair shape and it doesn't necessarily look like it needs to be reconstructed, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. You don't necessarily think of that, but it is a good way to implement some of those types of repairs into the overall plan to provide a cost-effective approach. Because a partial depth mill and overlay is probably 3 times less the cost of a total reconstruct, and it will help extend the life of the pavement 8 to 10 years. So yeah, exactly. So implementing, a mix of fixes is what we like to call it, where you dedicate some of your budget to maintenance, such as crack filling, some of it to those type of rehabilitative repairs, such as milling and overlaying, and then some to, the total reconstruct where, you can't get around it. You got to repair some of these sections that are in just awful shape. But a mix of fixes really is the best approach in terms of cost effectiveness to move forward with the plan.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't know a lot of that. So that was very helpful for me too. So thank you for that. Okay, once a pavement assessment is completed, what are the next steps?
So the next steps after the assessment is completed would really kind of look at it from a big picture point of view. What is the total backlog for any given site? In other words, how much is it going to cost to completely fix everything on site, whether it's maintenance or rehab or reconstruction type of repairs or a mixture of everything. Then obviously you have to compare that versus your available budget. And a lot of the times it's a fairly shocking sticker price when property owners and managers see that total cost. And most of the time, you do have to think about breaking that down into multiple years and multiple projects phased out over, 2 or a few years. So we'll help you. We would meet with any potential property owner that's looking to do this. And once that report is done, we'll go over it with you, go over what we think is the best approach. If we need to phase it, again, keep in mind that mix of fixes approach, and then try to work with you to pare it down to, okay, this is our budget. What is the actual pavement, the first phase of pavement repair, that project, what is that going to entail? And then from that point, we could work with you to come up with the construction documents for that particular project, the plans, specifications, that we can issue to bidders that, so everything is apples to apples. You don't have some contractors coming in with what they think is best. You have a third party come in with the recommended repairs. All the asphalt contractors or concrete contractors bid on that. And we can assess throughout that bidding process and then throughout the construction process as well, in terms of inspecting the work, managing any, issues that come up during construction and things like that.
I really appreciate that process, because that's kind of similar to my process. I'm just going out and finding the stuff, and then I'm telling you the cost, and then I make the people bid on it. Right. And that's much better for the consumer, because you're going to get what you're supposed to get. Because unless you're an expert in construction, you don't know if they're going to do it right or not. You're going to have no way of knowing. But having you on the team really helps to make sure that they're getting what they pay for. So I think that's important for the listeners to understand how important what you're talking about is. So absolutely. I want to thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. That I learned a lot in just this short time. And if someone would like to hire you, tell us how they could go about doing so.
Yeah, they can contact me if you're looking at any sort of pavement assessment or really any site engineering needs. Again, my name is Jacob Ensley, and my email address is jensley, which is ENSLEY @SDA-ENG.com.
Okay, with Spalding D. Decker. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Bye.